Today, we're going to look at this video from Robert Reich, another Robert Reich video. We're looking at this because one of my Patreon subscribers, one of my $10 a month Patreon subscribers requested that I look at this. And for those who don't know, my $10 per month Patreon subscribers, you get at least up to 5 minutes video clips per month for me to react to during a live stream. But we're going to be looking at Robert. Why did I like this video? Oops. We don't want to be liking Robert Reich. This guy's a fucking clown. Anyway, for those who don't know, Robert Reich, he's one of the economic experts on the left. I would classify him as an economic fascist, formerly known as a progressive. As you can see, he has over 370,000 subscribers on YouTube. He has over 1 million followers on Twitter. He's been featured on The Simpsons. He's had his own Netflix specials. He's written books. This is a well-respected intellectual amongst the left. And today we're going to look at his video, The Truth Behind the Self-Made Billionaire. Let's check this out.
Self-made billionaires are a myth. Just like unicorns.
Yeah, just like unicorns. You know who else said this? Matt Walsh, when he did a video for PragerU about self-esteem. Saying self-esteem, it's as real as unicorns.
You absolutely suck!
Of course, being self-made is a nice idea. It suggests that anybody can claw their way to the top if they're willing to work hard enough.
All right, claw their way to the top of what exactly? Is that what life is about? Is that the purpose of a free market, so that everyone can climb over each other to get to the top by some arbitrary standard? As the brilliant philosopher Ayn Rand once said, a creative man is motivated by the desire to achieve, not the desire to beat others. Even Steve Jobs once alluded to this when he did a press conference for Apple back in the 90s. I remember he said something along the lines of, we need to get rid of this notion that in order for Apple to win, Microsoft has to lose. You can have a variety of rich people, successful companies competing in a free market, each doing their own special thing. Life is not all about getting to the top or climbing over others.
It's what the American dream is all about. If Kylie Jenner can become a self-made billionaire at age 21, so can you and I.
All right, I feel like Robert is setting up a bit of a straw man here. First, I should probably define what I think being self-made means. I would define self-made as your success and net worth being largely created by your own productive and creative efforts. As you're going to see, Robert tries to make this all about starting from zero and going to, say, $1 billion. But let's say you start off with $5,000. Let's say when you graduate high school, your parents give you $5,000 and graduate. That's a lot, I think. I assume. Let's say you get $5,000 and say you put that money toward maybe starting a business, and then say after 20 years, 25 years, maybe 30 years, you manage to turn that $5,000 into $1 million. You become a millionaire after using that $5,000 to kind of get off the ground, so to speak. I think most reasonable people would see that and say, yeah, this guy's self-made. Yeah, he got $5,000 when he graduated high school, but for the most part, most of his money was earned through his own creative and productive efforts. Now let's say someone starts with $5 million and they managed to turn that into $1 billion, or even better, multiple billions of dollars. As you're going to see, Robert Reich, he does not think that this counts as self-made because someone went from rich to super rich. Even though the scale is the same as the situation where someone got 5,000 and turned that into 1 million. If you ask me, I don't think Robert Reich is being fair with his definitions. And not everyone is going to be a billionaire. In fact, even those who make billions of dollars, they're not going to do it as fast as someone like Kylie Jenner. And you know what? That's totally fine. That's totally okay. I think success should be defined by you reaching your potential, making the most out of your life, given your context and situation. It's not about measuring yourself against others or making the most money. This, after all, life is not a fucking game of Monopoly. And I've talked in depth about the case of Kylie Jenner before when everyone was making a big fuss about it years ago. I've also touched upon this topic when talking about Charles Koch, because I think a lot of people, they'll take cases like Charles Koch and Kylie Jenner, both of whom were born into wealth. They were born into families with well-established connections and businesses. Of course, this ignores all of the people who were born into similar situations and squandered their opportunities and connections and advantages. After all, even with Jenner and Koch, Kylie Jenner had many sisters, many siblings amongst Kardashians and Jenners who did not become billionaires like she did. Charles Koch was one of 4 brothers, and only 2 of the brothers, I think, became billionaires, whereas the other 2 did not. And yeah, some people will be provided with certain advantages. Some people will be born with other advantages. Some people will be born with a higher potential for intelligence. We see this a lot in professional sports. People are born with certain advantages, notably height. Speaking of professional sports, you could apply Robert's standard, the standard that he's about to apply. You could apply this to professional athletes like Steph Curry and even Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in professional wrestling. Steph Curry, for those who don't know, for those who are not big sports fans, he's definitely one of the biggest stars in the NBA this century. And for those who don't know, Steph Curry was born into a basketball family. His father, Del Curry, was a professional basketball player. And this, from what I've seen, gave Steph Curry many advantages that most prospective athletes and basketball players do not have. He definitely acquired a lot of knowledge from the game and the business. From what I've seen, he had other advantages and connections like access to preparatory schools with better basketball teams and elite amateur basketball teams. All this said, Steph Curry still had to develop skills and put in the work. One of his skills, of which he is the greatest in history at. I don't think it's controversial to say that nobody is born with the skill of shooting three-pointers at 45% accuracy like Steph Curry does and running an offense at the NBA level. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is another case. They're actually making a show about his life right now called Young Rock, which it's not a must-watch show. It's a fun show if you're looking for something family-friendly, lighthearted, upbeat. It's a pretty fun show, especially if you're a fan of professional wrestling or even college football. There's a lot of nostalgia in that show. But The Rock, he grew up in poverty, but he did grow up with good connections to professional wrestling. His father was a professional wrestler, and his grandparents on his mother's side, they were professional wrestlers. They ran a promotion in the state of Hawaii. And when The Rock's football career came to an end, came to a dead end, and The Rock decided that he wanted to turn to professional wrestling, he had his dad who was able to train him in the ring. And his dad also had connections to wrestling promotions, like one in Memphis, Tennessee, that was run by Jerry the King Lawler, including he had connections to Vince McMahon and World Wrestling Federation. But still, The Rock had to put in a lot of work and develop a lot of skills to become the superstar, arguably the greatest wrestler in history. I guess the point I'm trying to make is your advantages and your connections will only get you so far, whereas Robert Reich thinks it's the be-all, end-all, apparently.
Even as wages stay stagnant.
Oh, shit. This again? This is another common talking point I have to address with Robert Reich's videos. I actually did a video about this last year. I think it's called something like the 1970s were the golden age for America, where I bring in a lot of receipts. Economists like Scott Lincecum and Thomas Sowell have talked about this issue before, this myth of stagnant wages. Often when wages amongst the 90% or the middle class are counted, often what's not counted is stuff like employee benefits like health insurance and government assistance programs and tax credits, which is pretty convenient stuff to leave out. Another flaw with these analyses is they analyze groups rather than people. You see this chart goes back to 1980, and as we know, there are probably a lot of people in the 1980s who were part of the so-called bottom 90%. A lot of these people might have been med students, law students, doctors who were just getting their career started, who may have been part of the bottom 90%, but after a few decades of work, they probably got promoted and earned money to get out of the so-called bottom 90%. I actually saw a graph last week that was tweeted by Stephen Hicks, and this chart was put out by the American Enterprise Institute. And as you can see, middle class income, the middle class has shrunk, but not in the way that a lot of people often like to talk about. If you look at this chart, middle income, which is classified from $35,000 to $100,000 a year, 55% of Americans earned at this income in 1967. By 2021, that had dropped to 39%. And you might think, oh, wow, people might be dropping out and going into the lower class, where it's, as you can see, it's quite the opposite. A lot of these people are making more money. As you can see, people who are making above six figures. In 1967, it was at roughly 12.2%. Actually, this is household, not individual. Oops. Just to clarify that. It went from 12% in 1967, and now it's up to almost 36% in 2021. Meanwhile, low income, which is below $35,000 in 1967, it was roughly 33%, and that has dropped to 25%. I feel like these figures are kind of inconvenient for Robert Reich's narrative, who's trying to make it sound like people, the so-called bottom 90%, they've just been stagnating and struggling for what? 40 years? But Robert Reich has another chart to show us.
And wealth inequality grows. It's a comfort to think that we're all...
Oh no, more wealth inequality. Now, I think this chart especially is what some people might call a graph crime. If you notice the y-axis, it starts at 0, but immediately jumps to 2 million. And I think, I can't help but wonder if this is deliberate, because if you notice the bottom 90%, I guess the average wealth amongst the bottom 90% is roughly $119,000. And this goes all the way back to 1913, so over 100 years. But I can't help but wonder if the chart is scaled this way, because, yeah, $119,000 is definitely much closer to 0 than it is to $2 million. But by framing the chart like this, it makes it look like $119,000 is basically nothing. And what else does this chart imply? What? That life in 2019 is barely better than it was in 1913? Think about it. Would you rather have $119,000 in 1913 or 2019? Imagine what you would spend that money on. Would you rather have, say, 10 Model T vehicles in 1913, or would you rather have one Toyota Camry or Toyota Corolla in 2019? Which car do you think is better? Would you rather own a house that's a product of 1913 or own a house that's a product of 2019 with all the new appliances and all the updated technology that Americans have enjoyed over the last 100 years? And on top of that, I feel like this does not really prove Robert Reich's analysis, his theory here that billionaires are not self-made. He's just making a point about wealth inequality, which has nothing to do with whether or not someone, a billionaire, made their money through honest free trade and creative, productive effort.
We're all simply one cosmetics company and some elbow grease away from fortune. Unfortunately, a nice idea is all it is.
So, put aside the economic illiteracy and the political ramifications of what Robert Reich is saying here. Imagine genuinely having this perspective on life and the world that Robert Reich is promoting, and what this could potentially do to a young, impressionable mind. I mean, if this is your view of the world, why bother studying hard? Why bother working hard? Why bother pursuing a nice career? Why bother, pursuing a new idea or inventing a new product when, after all, achievement is impossible? You'll never be a billionaire like Kylie Jenner or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, so I guess just give up. Give it up, you guys, and, hope that feel-good economic planner like Robert Reich or one of his cohorts will eventually come along and send you a stimulus check and a bridge card to survive on.
The origins of self-made billionaires are often depicted as a rags to riches, rise to the top, fueled by nothing but...
See, this is the straw man he's putting up. It's you start from rags. It only counts if you start from zero.
Personal grit and the courage to take risks, like dropping out of college or starting a business in a garage.
You notice he casually mentions Steve Jobs, but then will casually not elaborate on his rise.
But in reality, the origins of many billionaires aren't so humble.
Yeah, see, it only counts if you start from very humble beginnings, you guys.
They're more like riches to even more riches.
Of course, the so-called robber barons that Robert Reich often likes to bitch about, like the Rockefellers and the Carnegies, that I've seen him complain about in other videos. They started from very humble beginnings. Do those count, Robert? Huh?
Stories rooted in upper middle class upbringings. How much risk did Bill Gates take on when his mother used her business connections to help Microsoft land a deal-making software for IBM?
All right, so I've actually seen people take issue with this anecdote, but let's assume this is true for a second. That Bill Gates, he just happened to have the right connection. Put aside the fact that Robert Reich, he mentions Bill Gates as having an upper middle class upbringing, and he's trying to use this to fit his narrative that I guess the money in the top 1% just stays in the top 1%. Well, that only counts if his parents were actually in the top 1% and not just upper middle class. So I'm not sure this supports his narrative, but let's assume that Bill Gates did need some sort of connection to get his foot in the door, so to speak. If it was this easy to write a new cutting-edge operating system in the early 1980s, then why didn't someone like, I don't know, Robert Reich do it? After all, Robert Reich, he only has 9 years on Bill Gates. And again, going back to my point about Steve Jobs, he's not going to mention Steve Jobs. I don't think Steve Jobs had the right connection to IBM. In fact, what we know about Steve Jobs is he actually had to butt heads with others at Apple. He eventually got fired and had to claw his way back to the top, so to speak. And after he came back to Apple in the late 90s, Apple was struggling and turned around and became one of the most profitable, largest companies, most successful companies in the world, which I guess goes to show that certain CEOs and executives and visionaries do provide value, contrary to what people like Robert Reich might have you believe. But getting back to the story about Bill Gates, as I said, having the right connection will only get you so far. And I think in the case of Bill Gates, it looks like he definitely made the most of it. And I know it's easy. I know it's easy to dunk on and hate on Microsoft these days, but I don't know about you guys. I remember the 1990s. I remember a world where home computers, personal computers, were not exactly ubiquitous in American life. And you can even look up videos on YouTube of Microsoft launch days in the mid-90s, launching Microsoft Windows 95, Windows 98, and people getting excited, lining up at stores like Best Buy and Circuit City, excited to get their hands on the new operating system. So let's not act like Bill Gates did not create some cutting-edge technology that millions of people were eager and happy to give him money in exchange for their product. And if it took someone like Bill Gates having the right connections to get started, you know what? I say that's absolutely wonderful. It's definitely made life a lot better. It's definitely made the world a lot better. Do you guys honestly think? I wonder if Robert Reich, I wonder if he honestly thinks that anyone these days who might be shelling out, say, $400 for a new Xbox console, if these people buying new Xboxes and new Microsoft software, if they even give a shit that Bill Gates, that the only way this was possible is because Bill Gates had a connection maybe 40 years ago, as they're enriching Bill Gates by buying Microsoft products. Again, connections can only get you so far. You can even apply this to a celebrity and actor like Nicolas Cage. For those who don't know, Nicolas Cage, he was born into the Coppola family, who had connections and was established in Hollywood. Probably helped him get his foot in the door, but again, that will only get you so far. Nicolas Cage still had to develop acting chops. You guys going to tell me that Nicolas Cage's Academy Award was won because he had the right connections? At the end of the day, you still have to create. You still have to produce. You still have to develop skills to be able to sell.
Elon Musk came from a wealthy family that owned an emerald mine.
Now, I've never done a deep dive on Elon Musk's upbringing, although according to Elon Musk, he has said, this is a tweet from back in 2019 responding to these allegations. Elon Musk said that his dad did not own an emerald mine, and I worked my way through college, ending up with $100,000 in student debt, and I could not even afford a second PC at Zip2, so I programmed at night, and my website only worked during the day. Where is this bullshit coming from? And even a few days ago, Elon Musk responded to Robert Reich on Twitter, calling him both an idiot and a liar. Again, this is a he said, she said, but if you guys don't want to take Elon Musk's word for it about his own upbringing, I don't know what else to tell you. I tend to believe Elon Musk than a charlatan like Robert Reich.
South Africa. Jeff Bezos' garage-based start was funded by a $250,000 investment from his parents.
Oh no! So all this happened, keep in mind, while Robert Reich was chairing the Department of Labor in the Bill Clinton administration. Well, Amazon's business model at the time was considered by some to be silly, hopeless, considering that Amazon had to compete against powerful players like Borders and Barnes & Noble, not to mention the beloved public library. A lot of people thought it was this notion of selling books on the internet when the internet was in its infancy was silly and ridiculous. Keep in mind that a lot of people did not even have much confidence in the internet, including economist Paul Krugman, who I think said that it would eventually go the way of the fax machine. So again, Reich's assertion here that billionaires like Bezos are not self-made merely because they had certain advantages. Bezos, okay, so I guess he took a $250,000 loan from his parents in the 1990s, and what did he do with it? He turned it into a company that would eventually become worth over $1 trillion after a few decades. Imagine not being impressed by this feat, taking $250,000 and turning it into a company worth over $1 trillion. And according to this article on CNBC, which was published in August of 2018 by Zamia Magia, I guess this happened in 1997. A filing unearthed by Bloomberg finds that Jackie and Mike Bezos invested $245,000 in Amazon in 1995. And if they had kept their holdings, Bloomberg estimates their shares could be worth $30 billion in 2018. So from $250,000 to $30 billion. And again, scale this down a bit. Let's say it was only a $250 investment, just $250, 250. What Jeff Bezos did would be the equivalent of taking $250 and turning it into what? $30 million in just what? 23 years? Is that not self-made enough for you, Robert? Huh?
If your safety net to joining the billionaire class is remaining joining the billionaire class is remaining upper class, that's not pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, nor is failing to pay your fair share of
It's getting a nice pair of boots and turning it into many dollars.
taxes along the way.
Oh, now he brings up my fair share.
Blow it out your ass.
Along with Musk and Bezos, Michael Bloomberg, George Soros, and Carl Icahn have all gotten away with paying 0 federal income taxes some years. That's a big helping hand.
It's a big fucking lie is what it is. So I have addressed this point before in previous videos, I think in response to Robert Reich. And if you're new to my channel, and if you think I'm punting the football to my other videos, the reason why I always refer to my other videos is because I actually bring in receipts, and I don't want to feel like I'm beating a dead horse. So if you want proof, if you want receipts, go look at my other videos. But I guess I will bring in some here too. This is an article from ProPublica, which is, as I like to say, not exactly Fox News. And I think ProPublica is using stolen information for this article. But according to this article from ProPublica, if we look at their income reported versus the taxes paid on their income from 2014 to 2018, these 4 billionaires, Buffett, Bezos, Bloomberg, and Musk, they paid anywhere between 19% of their income and 30% of their income on taxes, which I think in most cases is twice as much as what the so-called middle class pays on income taxes. But even if Robert Reich were not full of shit here, the fact that billionaires, let's assume this is true, the fact that billionaires might pay lower tax rates would not disprove the fact that they are self-made. This is not the same issue.
Courtesy of legal loopholes and American taxpayers who pick up the tab, all while our tax dollars subsidize the corporations owned by these so-called self-reliant.
Okay, all right. Robert Reich brings up a good point here. I don't think any corporations should be getting any subsidies or favors or bailouts, folks. But it's interesting that Reich brings up Tesla Motors, which I still think benefits from subsidies and government favors like trading carbon credits. But you got to ask, why does a company like Tesla Motors, who makes electric vehicles, why do they get such government favors? Well, for those who don't know, companies like Tesla, they get government favors because this is all done in an attempt to save the world from climate change. Woo! And as we know, if you guys don't know, this new Inflation Reduction Act, or as I like to call it, the Wallet Reduction Act, is being applauded for also serving as a climate change act. It's also going to subsidize and give favors to electric vehicle manufacturers. And this is something that Robert Reich himself applauded and supported. And if you watch this video on Twitter, he implores his followers to actually call their congressional representatives and support this bill that would continue giving subsidies to electric vehicle manufacturers. So way to go, Robert.
Entrepreneurs. Did you get a thank you card from any of them? I sure as hell didn't.
Well, they should be sending Robert a thank you card for supporting subsidies. the subsidization of their businesses, at least in the case of Elon Musk.
Other common ways that billionaires build their coffers off the backs of others include paying garbage wages.
Oh, I guess under $20 an hour. I guess that's garbage wages, according to Robert Reich, who just last year said that $15 per hour is the floor for a minimum wage. I gotta, Robert, why do you think minimum wage workers deserve a garbage wage by your own standards? Huh? And I've read articles over the years saying that Walmart is actually increasing their wages and benefits for their workers. Probably should have looked this up before doing this video. Oops.
and subjecting workers to abusive labor conditions. But portraying themselves as rugged individuals who overcame poverty or did it on their own remains an effective propaganda.
Yeah, so I guess Warren Buffett, yeah, he was born into a decent life, and Warren Buffett, I think, will be the first to tell you that he was lucky, but Warren Buffett is also one of the greatest investing minds, probably in history. You're not exactly born with that talent. Takes a lot of effort, focus, math, skills. But I guess if you're just born into the right household, you'll know which stocks to invest in, huh?
A tool for the ultra-wealthy, one that keeps workers from rising up collectively to demand fairer wages, and one that ultimately distracts from the role that billionaires...
Well, what if a worker wants to go to work and they're using their job to eventually hope to maybe become a billionaire themselves? Should that be allowed, Robert? Huh?
...play in fostering poverty in the first place? Billionaires say their success proves they can spend money more wisely and efficiently than the government.
Well, they certainly can, but even if they couldn't, that's not a reason for you to that wouldn't justify you taking their money, Robert.
Yet they have no problem with government spending when it comes to receiving corporate subsidies.
All right, yeah, and this is another issue. Okay, let's cut them off then. No more government favors for any businesses. If you can't succeed and stay afloat on the free market, then you should go out of business. And again, with Amazon, who definitely has a history of lobbying the government over the last few years. I know they did it in New York City. Not sure if what the favors they get is the same thing as a subsidy. You often see this conflation between tax credits, tax incentives, and subsidies. I'm opposed to all of them, let me be clear. But it's not like Amazon was built by getting favors, billions of dollars in favors from the U.S. government. And often what happens is billionaires like Jeff Bezos, they'll get rich and wealthy by building a successful company, business on the free market in the private sector. Then after a few decades, maybe even a century, they'll be considered too big to fail. And you'll have a lot of politicians who are eager to line up, even in the case of Amazon, eager to line up to give them favors for the local government so that the politicians can brag about bringing in jobs to the local economy. Or in the case of Ford, Henry Ford got rich by mass producing the automobiles at an affordable price. And eventually, or maybe Ford did not accept bailouts. Maybe that's a bad example. Okay, oops. I guess in the case of auto bailouts, companies like Chrysler and General Motors got successful by producing on the private sector, but eventually politicians sought to keep these zombie companies afloat in the effort of avoiding job losses.
When arguing for even more tax breaks, they claim each dollar the government takes from them is a dollar less for their critical role in expanding prosperity for all Americans through job creation and philanthropy.
And again, this is besides the point.
Well, that's rubbish. 50 years of tax cuts for the wealthy have failed to trickle down. As
failed to trickle down.
Of Trump's tax cuts, 2018 saw the 400 richest American families pay a lower tax rate than the middle class. And
so my knee-jerk reaction to this bullshit is to note that the richest still pay a much higher income tax than the rest of Americans. I think Tax Foundation, there's an article which I've referenced in other videos. I think like the top 1% pays roughly 36% of the total federal income taxes. The top 10% pays roughly 70%, and the top 50% pays roughly 98% of the total federal income taxes. But if you recall, Robert Reich, he's previously responded to this common talking point by shifting the goalposts. He did this in a previous video that I reacted to. He says, sure, yeah, when it comes to income taxes, the rich pay a higher rate, But because they also pay the same rate on other taxes like sales taxes and property taxes and other taxes, they pay a lower portion of their income on taxes than people who make less money. And also keep in mind, going back to the ProPublica report, they try to make a package out of unrealized gains, as you can see right here. They try to make a package out of income and unrealized gains in an effort to get what they call a true tax rate, an effort to make it look like that the rich are paying a lower rate in taxes when they're not. The reason why I bring this all up is because the source that Robert Reich cites for this also does the same thing. They, in an effort to justify their bullshit-ass wealth tax, they talk about, they try to conflate unrealized gains with income so that they can therefore count it as untaxed to make the richest Americans, make it look like the richest Americans pay a lower tax rate. So it looks like Robert Reich is up to his old tricks of shifting the goalposts. But don't fall for it, guys.
And U.S. billionaire wealth grew by $2 trillion during the first 2 years of a pandemic.
And keep in mind that the stock market has been going down as of late, and people have pointed out how you don't see many viral tweets or headlines or charlatans like Robert Reich talking about how my net worth or billionaire wealth grew, because it's probably shrunk for a lot of them if the market value of their assets has been going down.
That was economically catastrophic for just about everybody else. They want to have their cake and everyone else's cake and eat it.
Sounds like you're talking about yourself, Robert.
Behind every 10-figure net worth is systemic inequality, inherited wealth, labor exploitation, tax loopholes, and government subsidies. To claim these fortunes are self-made is to perpetuate a myth that blames the wealth gap on the choices of everyday Americans.
So is this an issue about the wealth gap? The fact that there's wealth inequality, again, does not disprove the fact that a lot of these billionaires are self-made.
Billionaires are not made by rugged individuals. They're made by policy failures and a system that rewards wealth over work. Know the truth.
Yeah, well, if you want to know the truth, then you guys should probably stop watching Robert Reich.